So what I want to start with is to show a little bit of a like automate and what we have here. So I right now have an automate server that I have built, and then I have a CentOS node. And we can see that like I'm filling a couple of controls. This is a CentOS node that has some stuff on it, but I'm filling some controls. And what I really want to do is I want to do some skips. There's some stuff in here that I'm pretty confident this is a demo environment. So I don't really think that I need to be setting no exec on my var temp. So Galen, are you cool with me like as a security person like skipping some of this stuff?
Yeah, John. I mean, I recognize that this is our, development systems, QA systems, and that this all mounted to the same partition here. So we can go ahead and skip all those kind of no exec, all those mount point particular controls you've got there. Go ahead and make that happen.
Yeah, sweet. So so making that happen is actually really simple. I have here a file. So we started with a plan. This plan basically specifies the scan package as well as the remediation package that I want to use. And then like I have this YAML file here that talks about what benchmark it is that I'm using. And then I just specify the things that I want to do. So I have some skips in here. I actually have a couple of like commands that like some of our remediation we want to be a little more careful with. And so, and then I have just some remediation. So all I need to do now is build this and upload it to my depot.
So John, you mentioned that, we've got a bunch of this content and, we're obviously working with the CentOS system. What else do we have from a content perspective that we can work with here? Do we have like Red Hat? CentOS is great for development, but, we obviously pay for Red Hat in production.
Yeah, that's a total great question. So let's take a look here. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that we have Red Hat. Yeah, sure enough, we have Red Hat 8 down here and both level 1 and level 2.
That's pretty awesome. All right, I'll give you another softball. What about Ubuntu and Debian systems? So let's stick with Ubuntu.
Yeah, we have Ubuntu. Yeah, we have Ubuntu, and we have Ubuntu both 12 all the way through 1804.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's get a little bit more complex here. What about Docker?
You know what? Sure enough, we have a Docker profile as well. Like, and we've been working on the Docker remediation to make it so that your Docker environment is secure.
Okay.
And I know you're probably going to ask me a couple of things, but like one of the things that I definitely want to highlight is we are the first provider certified by CIS for all 3 clouds. So that's AWS, Azure, and Google.
All right, let's take a look at that Azure profile.
Totally. Yep. And there we have that Azure benchmark, and we can quickly click into it and see some of the control sets and see like how that stuff is set up.
So just to make sure I understand what this is doing, John, this is not just looking at just a system in Azure. It's looking at my actual Azure controls around like user access management, around network rules, all that kind of stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. This is this one specifically you can see here is using the AD user and actually looking for your guest account and making sure that there isn't a guest account inside of your Azure AD.
Awesome. John, I think we might have killed enough time. Do you think the report's done yet?
Well, let's see. Go click on the node. Let it refresh, and sure enough, it is. There's this one here though that I have that I wasn't really sure about. I mean, if we click in and expand a little bit, like you can see that this is a little bit more of a complex control. It's actually wanting to do this allow users and deny users group for SSH. And I just wasn't sure, like, this is a test system. Like, Galen, what do you think we should be using for SSH?
Well, John, I mean, you're right. This is a pretty complicated control that we're working with here, but it's obvious that you know nothing because we actually don't use SSH in our environment. So we can remove this control entirely by proving that we're not using SSH on this system.
You're totally right. I totally forgot about this profile here that like shows that like we aren't even using SSH on this system. So like, yeah, you're right. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip that. That should be pretty simple to skip. Just give me one. Like all we should have to do now is like, just like I did before, we just have to basically like specify the scan, set it to false, and then the justification for why we don't want to scan it. And I'm just going to replace this whole file. And the nice thing is that like now that that's done, we can totally see that. and I should just be able to rebuild. So while that's building, Galen, like, I'm still kind of like, I understand the need for not having SSH, but like, how about we talk a little bit more about like why that is and like what it is that why I don't need SSH on my systems anymore.
Yeah, so as Keka started talking about earlier, right, we have the ability to create an artifact that is the entirety of the policy we want to follow, right? So that security policy is written in the inspec. We have the remediation policy as well. Together, combined, it's what you're actually creating and uploading right now, right? It's that workload artifact. We can put this into a pipeline. Obviously, today we're just putting this directly to an artifact store, but we can definitely put this through, you know, your CI/CD systems. And the whole point here is that your systems pull from an artifact store. We have the concept of channels, so we can make sure we don't roll an update accidentally to a system before it's ready. But this allows us to make sure that the systems in question, our production systems, do not have inbound access rules. They talk directly to an artifact store, which pulls from the pipeline, which gets its artifact from source code. Again, chain of custody, being able to attest to the security and the integrity of this artifact as we go through the whole process is really critical. And so as a result, we don't use SSH to manage the systems. As we can see, we're making changes very rapidly without even the use of it.
Yeah, it's super awesome. And one of the things that I want to highlight is we do have like a bunch of profiles, and we also have some remediation content. I just want to talk about some of that. This is kind of some of the content that we've been working on. But I think we've killed enough time. So let's go see if that that change actually came through. So we'll just click refresh real quick, and sure enough, we have a fully compliant node. And what we can do is we can actually click on the wave controls, and we can scroll down here, and we can see not only the wave controls that I did on the first scan, but here's that control that I have waved, and we can see there's that reason because we don't use SSH. So.
Well, there we have it. John, I think that we just showed in about 5 or 6 minutes that we can make a couple sets of changes to systems and have at the end of it a fully compliant system to our specific organizational controls.